Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I've got another interesting new drone to show you today. This is an 85mm power whoop. It runs on 2S or 3S and it's carrying the DJI Digital FPV system. That means I fly it around with goggles like this and get high-def video while I'm flying, which is pretty sweet. And this is smaller than most DJI drones. But more importantly, this one is unusually light. It weighs about 66 grams dry weight. And even with a battery, it's going to be something like 92, 95 grams. And to put that in perspective, it was just 7 months ago when I reviewed the Beta85X. Some of you might remember seeing that video on my channel. And that one had a flying weight of about 160 grams. Beta FPV sent me this drone, so I've had it for a few weeks, but the final version is out. They are selling it now. I'll put a picture up here because it looks a little bit different with the new canopy, but the rest of the parts are about the same, and there's a new 75mm version as well. But how is this so light? How is this so much lighter than other DJI drones on the market? And the answer is super interesting. It has to do with the VTX. This has, of course, the Nebula camera and the Vista Air Unit. But what they've done is they've modified that Air Unit to reduce weight, which is kind of awesome and kind of scary. A normal Vista looks like this. You can see there's a big gray metal heatsink on this side, on the other side, in the middle. What they've done is they have removed all of those heat sinks. So this drone doesn't have any of them. And it really does save a lot of weight and it makes a big difference. But it's also kind of scary because heat is always an issue with these DJI Air units. The Vista runs notoriously hot and this one is going to have a harder time cooling off. Of course, Beta FPV is counting on the props to keep it cool, and that does work. I have been flying it, but I'm curious to know what you think. Is this awesome? Is this crazy? Have you done it yourself? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to talk about it. I'll share my opinions in just a minute when we take a look at this on the bench, but first I want to show you some flight footage because I really have been having a lot of fun with this. The reduced weight makes it a whole lot easier to fly this in the kinds of places where I would want to fly whoop anyway, right? That's close to the house, close to people, through those tiny gaps. And of course, if you bump into things, it's no big deal. You can often recover in the air because of the whoop frame. And so it's still heavier than a lot of my other whoops, but it's getting there and it's a bunch of fun. So check this out and then we'll take a look on the bench. Oh yeah, and if you enjoy the content on this channel, please consider subscribing and hit that like button. And of course, the links for all the products will be down in the video description. All right, here you can see the drone up close. There's a few features of this drone that I want to point out, and then we'll talk about managing the heat on that VTX. It's got the Caddx Nebula camera, and the Air Unit is underneath. It's got this cute little VTX antenna on the back, although I had to glue it in so it would stop popping out. And I also added this zip tie to help secure the canopy. This canopy is only attached at 3 points, not 4, so I added the zip tie. Not sure what the new canopy will be like there. Weight is, of course, really important to this drone, so let's get it on the scale. Mine's right about 66 grams. And for flying in the small spaces around my yard, I kind of like using these 300mAh 3S batteries. With that battery, we're looking at 92 grams. I've been getting about 3 minutes of flight time with that battery, but of course you can also go up to a 450 3S. I've been using these batteries and getting about 4 minutes of flight time. This is the size battery that Beta FPV recommends, but you can also fly this on 2S. It's cool that 2S is a viable option because that helps get the weight down even more, and it's still got plenty of power for flying indoors. The motors are 1103 8000 kV, not the 1105 motors from the original 85X, and so that also helps save a bunch of weight. And of course, the other place they saved a lot of weight is on that Vista Air Unit, where they removed the heat sinks. So let's talk about heat for a minute. I've been flying this indoors and outdoors, and I've never once had a problem with the air unit overheating while I'm flying. That's good news, but take into account I live in Western Washington. It's not a very hot climate. You might have a different situation flying this somewhere really warm, but so far so good as long as it's in the air. If I open it up, you can see what the air unit looks like now. It is a whole lot thinner without those heat sinks, and this blue stuff is thermal paste that used to conduct heat between the board and the heat sinks. This obviously started out as a regular air unit, and they just took the heat sinks off. So I don't know if the final product will be like that or not. The one I have is obviously a prototype. When I first got this drone, the very first thing that I did was plug it into my computer so I could start updating the DJI firmware on the air unit, and I also did the over-the-air update for my Crossfire. Both of those operations take a few minutes, and both of them require the battery to be plugged in while it's on the bench, and that is a situation where it's really going to get hot. I highly recommend that you get a fan, a computer fan or a household fan or some kind of fan, point it at this thing with good airflow before you even plug it in. I'm totally serious. Otherwise, I think it's quite likely that it would overheat and shut down, and if it did that in the middle of a firmware update, I'm not sure what happens in that case, but I'd rather not find out, so make sure you have a lot of good airflow. So in my experience, the heat in the air has not been a problem at all, and the heat on the bench is something that you can deal with if you are prepared for it. But there is another situation that could be a problem. If you crashed this drone and you couldn't turtle and fly it back and it was going to take you a while to get to it, that's another situation where it would be on for a while without the props cooling it, and I think overheating is a significant danger in that case. I'm not sure if it would damage the air unit or if it would shut itself down cleanly. I'm not really sure, but I don't really care because it saves so much weight, and for me, I like to make ultralight builds, and so that is a win for me. But I have kind of a high risk tolerance when it comes to these things. You'll have to decide for yourself if that is the right thing to do. I am super interested to know what you guys think about this drone and about the general idea of stripping down these Vista Air units to create ultralight HD drones. That stuff is interesting to me. If you want to talk about it, let's talk down in the comment section below. Of course, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those too. And if you are new to this channel, welcome. I've got tons of videos. I just do this in my spare time, but check out on the channel link. There's a bunch of other stuff on there, and stick around because I've got more interesting stuff coming for you guys. So have fun out there, and I will see you next time.